What up, nerds? And welcome to another childlike episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 406, recorded on Monday, January 16th, 2023. Tonight we're talking about Skinamarink. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Rand Deuce. What's up, man?
The colors, Duke! The colors!
What's up, baby? It's time for the most rip-roaring, action-packed episode of fucking Straight Chilling ever. The most balls to the walls, the most action-packed episode to talk about Skinamarink.
My boy came in with a "What's up, baby?" Damn. Love it. I'm really looking forward to talking about this movie, specifically with you, Randy, because you're the Liminal boy on the cast. You're Mr. Liminal.
Oh my god!
Everybody knows that.
I don't know if I approve of that. That moniker is maybe the one nickname I will deny.
Liminal Randy. That's what we call him on the streets. Last but not least, calling in from Saxonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what a bitch, boy! Skinamarinky-dinky-dink. Skinamarinky-deuce. I love juice stains.
That's uncomfortable to hear. I gotta be honest.
It's impressive that you worked in juice and deuce.
I know.
I'm proud of you for that one.
That's just a standard day in the shower for old juice stains, let me tell you.
In the shower?
Dude,
yeah.
Are you shitting in the shower?
What?
Are you a shower shitter?
I meant changing lyrics, Bob, but the song.
No, dog, you're shitting in the shower. We know.
That's the real Skinamarink.
That's what you wish, Bob, Mr. Skymang over there.
That's the little shit song.
You hear what you want to hear, Bob.
Shit in my sinky, sinky, sink. Shit in my sinky, you.
I love juice. Oh, boys. This is going to be an interesting fucking conversation. Before we get into it. Yeah, well,
don't put that on us.
We are interesting, guaranteed. We got a little bit of housekeeping, real quick. Here's another reminder: we do have our February poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this February. The theme for February is Women in Horror Month, and we chose 3 movies for you to vote between, all of which are directed by female directors. The movies are Raw, Censor, and Slumber Party Massacre.
Whoa, Bob, how are those numbers looking halfway through January?
Halfway. Slumber Party Massacre is still winning. Raw's picked up a little bit of steam, and Censor is in last place.
All right, boys, it'll be Halloween before you know it.
It always is.
We're well on our way.
Time to
10 short months away, and we'll be just spooking it up.
I'm gonna go get a Christmas
really,
tree.
we've got less than 7 months now to hit spooky season.
Speak English, Doc. We ain't scientists.
That's true.
And we got halfway to Halloween to celebrate. I mean, you know,
dude. After Joe Bob blew the lid off Walpurgisnacht, like we got a halfway to Halloween legit. April 30th, I think. Which is
off the what? What did you say?
Blew the lid off of Walpurgisnacht.
Is that Swedish thing or some shit? Like,
it's another like legit.
Why don't you just tell me what that is?
Yeah, why don't you tell me what that is? I know what it is.
What the fuck you're talking
but
about?
I want you to.
For everyone else,
make sure you know what it is.
Do you know the words that are?
Do you even really know what the Smurgadaflurk is?
Come on. It's another like Nordic holiday similar to Samhain, but it happens on April 30th, I think, which is
okay.
The spring equinox. So fall equinox is like the Halloween version, and I think spring is the Walpurgisnacht one. But it's a very similar type tradition. but like nobody really knows about it or celebrates it. And he did like one of his episodes last spring all about Walpurgisnacht, and he was dressed up in this like old school robe, and he was talking about all the beers that they would drink during the festival and stuff. It was really interesting. Actually.
Yeah, I want to check that.
Is this the one that has like wood carved masks and shit? Like
maybe
I saw a short film somewhere about this guy who like handmade all these like fucking awesome like troll looking masks for their Nordic festival.
Need to get some.
I got to remember what that is because if it's not that, like we should amp that.
Do that.
That's how we need to be spending our funds.
We need to celebrate that.
Spending our lives, dude.
Anyway,
can't buy happiness, baby.
Check out Walpurgisnacht. Also, get your votes in before the end of January, and we'll see what movie we're talking about this February. In other Patreon news, we're dropping a brand new minicast this Friday, the 20th. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole back catalog of Patreon exclusive episodes. This Friday, we're dropping we're dropping a review of Boners and All.
Whoa, Bob, that's you talking about them boners, isn't it?
I'm talking about the Boners and All this Friday.
All right, let's set the record straight. It's bones and all.
It's bones
let's not.
That's what it's. That's
we
what
should have a baseline.
Let's not just shit all over this man's art.
Bone and boner are like the same.
The same word, dude.
They're the same, but
starting off nice and
we're real. Your boy Luca Guadagnino.
Jokes and boner jokes.
Luca Guadagnino's latest Bones and All. He previously directed the Suspiria 2018 remake. So my thoughts on that dropping this Friday over on Patreon. Also, last Friday, the 13th, we dropped a brand new Tiki video over on the YouTubes. Isn't that right, Juice?
That is correct, Bob. Thanks for mentioning it. Yes, to celebrate Friday the 13th, we did drop a new Tiki video. This time we headed back to the Haunted Hideaway, and Bob was making us Packanack Sazerac. Bob, lighting shit on fire, Mr. Firestarter.
That's me. Kinky Firestarter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So check that out.
Is that your AIM handle?
Yes.
I should also be obligated to mention like at least once a month that we also have a full documentary about this podcast and lots of YouTube content available on our YouTube
There's all
page.
kinds of ways to jerk yourself off on camera, and that's our way.
And you can watch it on YouTube now.
You can watch it.
Hours.
Yep, exclusive YouTube content.
Hours and hours. So yeah, I did a Friday the 13th Part 2 inspired cocktail. It's a riff on the Sazerac called the Packanack Sazerac. It's hopefully pretty cool. If anybody does decide to try and make it at home, let me know what you think. Also, at this Tuesday, which of course by the time this episode is out, this will already be out. Mikey and I over at Let's Get Physical Media are dropping a new episode. It is our December pickups. So you can get that anywhere you get your podcast. If you have an interest in collecting DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, tune in. Check out Let's Get Physical Media.
Well, surprise, surprise. It's going to be another one of those weeks because dropping on Monday, the better day, is a brand new Creature Comforts episode where I'm going to be talking with a very special guest about Fight Club. I will mention them next week once the episode is out, but I did want to mention that is coming out on Monday, so keep an eye out for that.
Monday, famously everyone's favorite day.
Everybody loves
Monday.
They love it.
Got a case of the moon days.
That means I'm psyched.
Randy, you also have a little bit of housekeeping.
Oh, my Lord.
I do. I'm actually behind on my housekeeping, as a matter of fact.
Get in there.
Yeah, so last week I recorded with our good friend Nicole at the Light and Shadow podcast. We had a sort of impromptu conversation about The Menu, which dropped, I believe it was Thursday. And just due to circumstances, I wasn't aware that it was coming out at that time. So here we are talking about it now. It just dropped. It's the newest episode, Light and Shadow podcast, The Menu, Chef Slowick, Hero or Menace. You find out from us.
Whoa, boys, we're on fire already. Look at us.
So much, and it's only like 2 weeks into the year.
So what are we doing? I was telling Bob on Saturday, I was like, this was supposed to be the down year.
Dude, I said that about I said that about the other aspects of my life last year, and fuck if that happened. Shit doesn't slow down.
What is happening?
You know what we should do? Just more shit.
You know what we should do is the
Somehow.
most deadly fucking sentence in the English language to me.
Yeah. Nothing. We're doing nothing.
It's become the pariah of this podcast.
I
We should do.
think that's all the housekeeping. Unless I forgot something.
Yeah, my house is clean.
We're calling it clean.
Squeaky.
His house is clean.
Cool.
Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the main event. We are talking about Skinamarink, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
I'm excited
Bob?
to see how they actually do box this up when they release it, because
Yeah.
Got some
What could they
pre-order,
even
my
do?
guy?
it's just going to be a loose disc they send out in a fucking torn envelope.
Here you go, you fucker. No, this is not up for pre-order anywhere yet. This movie kind of got fucked over a little bit, which it's debatable as to whether or not this really helped its reputation or not. But it was making its festival rounds last year towards the end of the year. And for one of the festivals, there was somebody definitely fucked up. And instead of just having it available to stream for people to watch, they had it for download. So somebody was able to download it, and it spread like
Oh,
wildfire.
somebody got fired for that shit.
For real. I mean, I don't want anybody to lose their job.
I mean,
But
I'm a pirate kind of guy. Pirate's life for me, but I mean, that's not chill. Especially somebody's kind of breaking
Justin
out.
prefers the hunt
Yeah.
instead of
yeah.
given on a platter.
If you guys remember, it was last early December or late November. Everybody was talking about this movie, but it was technically nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody saw it and started tweeting about it and TikToking about it or whatever. So they had to kind of fast track its release, and so now it's in theaters as of last Friday, and it will be on Shudder soon. But I don't think they've released a date yet for Shudder.
Dude, I didn't know any of that. That is shitty, man.
That sucks.
I don't know. I can't imagine. You want all that impact to happen on a timetable.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah, now it does, in some ways you can try to turn some lemons into lemonade with, I do think it has built up
If
quite
it was
a bit
a
of
truly
reputation, and stuff like
if it was a truly god awful, unwatchable movie that nobody would ever like, then it would really over.
that. Well, yeah.
I think it speaks to the quality that the movie's not quite fucked over. Yet.
Yeah, I think they salvaged it. It's pretty good,
Pretty
you
well.
know.
Mhm.
So this and it's kind of a bummer because this is the director Kyle Edward Ball. This is his feature-length debut. He had a YouTube channel previously where he did a whole bunch of horror shorts, and he did a 30-minute short called Heck that this movie is basically the full-length version of. So just a little bit of history there. But Skinamarink, with a runtime of an hour and 40 minutes, written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball, starring some people that you don't really see much of, but Jamie Hill, Lucas Paul, and Ross Paul.
Samuel Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson, you don't ever see him.
Chris Evans is in there. Yeah, he plays the kid.
America's ass. You see it in there silhouetted. Plot synopsis brought to you by IMDb is as follows. 2 children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished. So yeah, that's pretty much it. First time watch for all of us. Obviously, it's a brand new movie. Gentlemen, would you recommend people check out Skinamarink? Randy, why don't you kick us off?
It's a tough one to recommend, I would say, because this is a movie that I think maybe my guess is something like 2/5 of viewers of this are gonna really like it or have something get a good experience out of it, and then 3/5 maybe not so much. I just don't think this is the movie for everyone, so I would feel weird about recommending it in mixed company unless I know what you're into. If you're into any of the creepypasta type shit, any of Bob said, the liminal spaces shit, or internet horror, the horror that lives on the internet in particular, is to me kind of the evolution of. So I think it's worthwhile in that regard, if nothing else. And yeah, I think it's we'll get into more, I guess. I'm starting to review it, so loose recommend.
Loosey Goosey from Randucey. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar space. I want people to check this out, especially horror fans, because I think it represents a unique type of horror that, has some value in the ideas of, what it is to create a film or what a film can be. But if I'm being honest, I would have lost my goddamn mind if I watched this in the theaters. Now that might be something you're into, but I just couldn't have,
When you say lost your mind, out of fear or out of boredom?
No, it would have drove me crazy. I would have been antsy as shit. It would have been very unpleasant watch for me to watch this in theaters. And I'll get more into that in the review. So I kind of agree with Randy. I think there are going to be some people who really love this movie. I think there's going to, that instead of 3/5, I think it's going to be split. Some people are going to love this movie and be really affected by it. Some people are absolutely going to hate it and think it's kind of garbage. And then there's going to be people who really just kind of appreciate the craft or just what it's trying to do or stuff like that. But it's going to be pretty divisive type of film. So, I don't know. Take that for what you will. Bob, how about you? Would you recommend people check this out?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think blanket statement, I would say yes, watch it. Before I would say no, do not watch it. I would add that I wouldn't rush out to the movie theater to see it. I would just hang back for another 3 weeks, a month for it to hit Shudder and just watch it at the house on Shudder. I think it's. You disagree with that, Randy?
I don't know, and we'll talk about that, but I don't want us to forget about that because it's something we're talking about.
Okay, we'll circle back to it. I totally think it's worth watching, especially if you're into more experimental horror. If you truly want something different, that's not just another Conjuring movie. If you're sick of fucking Insidious and Annabelle, this is truly different. You might not love it, but I think there's definitely something you can find in here to appreciate for sure. I guess take that for what it's worth. It sounds like kind of a yes from the Straight Chilling Crew with several caveats.
I think that was a good way. More recommend somebody would check it out, especially horror fans, than I would turn them away.
I would rather everyone love this movie. Everyone hate it.
Sure. And also too, it's really up in the air about who's going to like it, who's going to hate it. So I just be check it out, man. Check it out.
I think your mileage may vary. It's the ultimate your mileage may vary movie.
This is this has to be the kind of shit that Lynch masturbates to, right? This is,
dude.
It's gotta be.
I hope this is very children centric, so I really hope not.
But you never see them. It's fine.
Kind of putting a lot on David there.
It's mostly Legos.
Predator Bob.
We gotta. Well, we're starting to get spoiled.
But I want to circle back to that too.
Okay. So yeah, kind of a yes from the Straight Chilling Crew. There you go. We're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
All right.
Bob, you got a plot synopsis?
I do.
I think I have one too. Here it is.
In this house.
There you go.
Interesting.
That's pretty much the whole movie.
I'm done. That's it.
Kind of says it all. That is literally the tagline of this film, by the way. It's on the poster. In this house, ... And it's upside down.
In this house. I got a synopsis. I'll blast through it here. So the movie does open up with a dedication to a gentleman named Joshua Buchholzer, who was the assistant director on this movie, and apparently he passed away during post-production.
Oh, man.
Shouts outs to him. I believe, I forget exactly how old he was. A young gentleman. He was in his early 20s, I want to say. So
I looked at the day, and it was because I was like, oh, that's too young for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought it was, at first I thought it was even younger. I was like, oh my God, this was like a 12-year-old kid.
No,
thank God.
No.
I got those numbers off.
I think it was right around 30.
Maybe right,
somewhere around that.
Yeah.
It was easy for me to easily recognize, oh shit, that's,
Yeah. Bummer. And also, just like for context of the plot, if you for some reason haven't seen it but you're still listening, the movie takes place in a single location for the most part anyway, which is just like a house, just your average ass house. And it's definitely from a child.
Whoa, big money, Bob.
My house is certainly smaller than that. It's from a child's perspective, and you really don't hardly see any of the characters. There's almost no dialogue, and whatever is like actually happening is largely off screen and extremely open for interpretation. So this is the best plot synopsis I could potentially gather here. So the movie's set in 1995. And we see several establishing shots of the interior of a house. We eventually hear a little boy named Kevin wake up in the middle of the night, and he tumbles down the stairs. His father wakes up and takes him to the hospital. When they return, we hear that he wasn't hurt too bad. No stitches were required. Kevin's little sister, Kaylee, says that he was sleepwalking, and that's why he fell. Then all the doors and windows in the house magically disappear. The kids can't find their dad, and they go downstairs to watch TV. They hear their mom crying, and then magically there's just like a chair on the ceiling somehow. Then their toilet disappears, and they got to have like pee and poo-poo buckets. And that's a bummer. That's always a bummer.
Poo bucket.
Do your thing, cuz.
Shit in a bucket, cuz. Kaylee then goes into her parents' bedroom. Her dad tells her to look underneath the bed. She does a couple times. There's nothing under there. She pops back up, and she sees that her father has disappeared, but what we assume to be her mother is now sitting on the bed. She tells Kaylee she loves her and that there is someone else in the house and that she needs to go back downstairs. So she does. A strange voice asks Kevin to come down to the basement. He does, and he finds his sister, who's saying she isn't feeling well. We then get a very quick shot of Kaylee with no mouth at all. The voice then tells Kevin to sleep, and he falls down. The voice then says he wants to play and tells Kevin to stick a knife in his eye. We hear some screaming, and then Kyle wakes up. He calls 911, says he's hurt and he's feeling sick. The voice then says that Kaylee didn't want to do what she was told, so he took her mouth from her. He tells Kevin to come upstairs. He goes upstairs, and everything is upside down now, and he's walking on the ceiling for some reason. Then all of his toys are on the ceiling, and we get this like weird, really far away establishing shot of the house, and then it says like 572 days, and we're back in the house, and like all the pictures of the kids' faces are obscured. All the toys are on the ceiling. Kevin then asks Kaylee if they can watch something happy. And finally, we see a very blurry, obscured white face that is just breaking the shit out of the fourth wall and looking directly into your soul. And it lingers for like it feels like an eternity. But it eventually says, go to sleep. And then it asks, what's your name? What's your name? And then the movie ends.
That's just the guy I am.
There you go there. What a movie. What
a movie.
What a movie.
So you guys, I watched this in theaters.
Okay.
And it was a packed house. And when the lights,
good.
It was a packed house. And when the lights came up at the end of this movie, everyone looked dumbfounded as fuck. It was just like, they had no fucking idea how to handle it. So, like, there were 3 dudes sitting next to me, and a couple of them started I heard like one clap, like
somebody trying to go.
Someone, and I don't know how sarcastic it was, but man, it made me laugh. This is a fucking crazy movie.
Did this?
It's interesting to hear about the experience of the theater because this reminds me of some things. Blair Witch comes to mind.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity kind of comes to mind
in general. Yeah.
And Eraserhead. Those were the 3 kind of things that kind of stuck out in my mind of some ingredients of what this film might be. Yeah. But when I was like watching this and afterwards, the way that the kind of noise goes on in this film, the style, like the
grain.
The grain, yeah, thank you. Goes on, and then this like staticky or just this white kind of noise. It would have, as slow as this movie is, I've talked about like really being bothered by certain things like 2001 Space Odyssey and like kind of how slow it is and makes you sit with shit. I like even watching this at home, I was like getting antsy and just like, oh my God, if I was like stuck in a chair where like I couldn't really like adjust or anything, it was weird. I would have it would have driven me insane. I would have I would not have liked it.
So like what you're saying is you would have been like the reason. Okay, I'm trying to get to the core of that because
it sounds effective.
that's
is,
the thing.
Yeah.
It's like I had this similar experience, except what I had moments in this movie where the immersion was so good, which is what I'm an immersion whore. I'm a found footage guy. This is established lore for us. And so like I'm there for an immersive experience sort of thing. And that's what this whole movie is trying to be. There's a few things that break that, but there are a few parts of this movie that are so effectively immersive that I had a hard time looking directly at the screen. And I was like really forcing myself not to like stare at the turned off lights on the wall or whatever. It's in the theaters. So like especially the end, that final shot, like when they're looking at his parents and looking under the bed and like those like long, like hyper long, like lingering shots that just feel like something's going to jump at you, even though there's very few actual jump scares in this, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. And some of
the threat of them is all over the place.
Yeah. I think Bob, I wanted to bring up a point that you brought up, but I want to let you say, like, talking about the noise and how how the space was used. You were telling me that on Saturday.
Yeah, there was something interesting that happened. So, like, I watched this at the house, and the first we got a new puppy, and for the first like 30 minutes, I was watching the living room, and he was like acting a fool, like panting heavily, whimpering, like really not having a good time. We're like, what's going on? Like. And then I started to think like the movie is like saturated with noise.
Oh, it's like dog tones.
So I was like, maybe I need to move this just to the bedroom or whatever. So I did, and he did eventually calm down. But I just thought that was like a really interesting thing that like made me even more aware of the like noise level of the movie than I would have been.
Horror for dogs. It's an untapped market.
It definitely unsettled my pup. But also like speaking of like the film grain, like. This movie has almost no lighting in it, really. So, like, this was shot digitally, and all that stuff was like, effects added to it. But like, generally speaking, like if you were actually shooting this movie on film, you would have what's called like a really fast speed film or like something with a high ISO. And typically, when you do that, it's like extraordinarily grainy. So, like when it's lingering on these shots that have like. All this negative space, like the grain almost like moves and waves and dances and plays with your eyes in a way that's really fucking interesting. Cause like in some moments there really is something there. And some moments like your eyes are just playing tricks on you and it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. And I love that.
That's two things about that. One is yes, absolutely. That is like an established thing. Like this is VHS, This is what used to scare us as a kid. Like there's been a lot of hay made about this in like In Search of Darkness and things like that. Those documentary about 80s horror movies. There's something about watching horror movies on a somewhat fuzzy, CTR screen or whatever with that film grain or whatever, that VHS, all that shit that really like the fuzziness makes it harder to pick out. So it's like you're working harder and you're putting yourself more out there. You're putting yourself more into the film in order to understand what you're seeing. And there's something really effective about that. Right. You feel like you need to get closer. You have to squint at things you'd rather not look at. And like there's something really effective about that. The one downside to that, I will say, and maybe I imagine this, but I don't think that I did. In the theater, it's all up there and it's so big and it's like really great. But that grain effect, I could be wrong, but what I thought I saw was the grain effect sort of like
The
looping back and forth, where you would have a stutter stop where you know that it's looping back on the same.
That's what I saw as well. That's what I saw. So while I did agree, yeah, that was the thing, because, well, mainly too, part of this, I was just editing that video for the documentary, and one of the things when we were like working on some things, you're like, hey, turn some of that down, because when you get it on a bigger screen, it like really comes through. And I was like, yeah, you're right, and I had to take it down to like 2% at one point. And even at like 7%, it was like, oh, it just like really fills the space. And I noticed that, because I was like, this is a lot of grain. Like, even for the black space, it's a lot. But it is effective in some ways, but it does have this artificial feel. It's honestly, like, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say, it's got this artificial feel where it doesn't feel like that's how it would really be.
Well, see, and here's the thing: is I think it is. I think it's really effective, except for the step where you can kind of like clock that happening.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that's the sort of thing that I know how to fix. And if I know how to fix it, then it's the sort of thing that probably shouldn't have made it to a feature-length film in a theater. Those, like, that's a technical issue that is like, that's one of the little things. And the thing is, it's continuous, right? You do that, they do that same loop the whole movie. So whenever you're just seeing it every so often, you don't get like, it really, like, that was one of the small technical things that got under my skin about the immersive moment. It pulled me out a little bit.
This boy was balling on a pretty serious budget, which I know if you have the effect, you can manipulate it how you want. But it was like $15,000, and he shot it in 7 days. And it was actually filmed. It's a Canadian movie. It was filmed in his home in Alberta, Canada. Like, his parents still own the house, I guess. So like, super low budget, homegrown kind of thing. So like, I didn't particularly notice that, but I give a little bit of leeway, I guess, knowing.
Sure.
That,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those things that, like, that's one of those little flaws that really seems like it shouldn't be a big deal, but because the movie is built entirely on an immersive experience, for somebody who can clock that sort of thing, like, I'm not like an expert at that sort of shit, but if I can clock it, then it affects me negatively in terms of enjoyment of the film. But that's one of the few things I would say that really hits that way.
Well, so I want to talk about that, because where the budget, and, I want to give praise where I think praise is due, because, sometimes a limit restrictions, like hard restrictions like that, can make you more creative. And to give credit to this guy, people are talking about this because it's unique. It's got this, it's kind of one of those ideas where you go, oh my God, how has nobody kind of tried to do this before? Or you kind of capture this feeling of what it feels like to be terrified as a very small child. So I feel like it taps into this very kind of primal thing that everybody has experienced, being scared of the dark, being so tiny and everything looking so big. And this is your house, but like, your brain isn't formed yet, and you're like, don't really know what's going on. So I feel like he really tapped into that, but there were some moments where I felt like really kind of dropped the ball where he was going strong. And a couple moments is when things like disappear, the toilet and the windows, where he gives this wonky little sound effect, like,
yeah.
It's like, you didn't need to do that.
I think, like,
and it feels cheap to me.
I think that I like that he needed to call that out somehow. I don't think that having the kids talk about, like, he's trying to eliminate the amount of speech. He's trying to disassociate you, right, from these. You don't see faces in this, at least no friendly faces. You don't, like, there's something like there's a wall between. You're not able to look in anybody's eyes and tell what they're thinking. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
There's no way. You're seeing feet, you're seeing corners, you're seeing things. So to show that in a way that explains that that's what's happened, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that was an effective way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been more effective for me. Maybe not with the toilet. I don't know if this would work for the toilet, but I don't even know if you need that scene, because it's just kind of weird. I don't know.
It doesn't
think so.
But for the windows and the doors, like, I think you definitely need that. And I think that just showing them like slowly close together like that, like,
or you can
would have been fucking odd. It would have fit the slow pace, the slow, quiet menace that is this movie, instead of these like
It's pretty easy. I think you could do an establishing shot, especially since it is, like kind of like a found footage style, POV style, where they walk by the door, but they're searching for their dad and then walk by the same space. It's pretty easy to create a kind of blank space, especially if you already have a wall maybe next to the door or something to kind of fill that in, even on a very limited budget. So like, that's kind of how I would think about doing it. I wouldn't like just focus on it and it going whoop. It's like, no, I think it's important to show as well, but I do not think that was the way to do it.
I think it's like, again, it's like, this is an experimental thing. Yeah. So like, I give it a lot of leeway and but like, personally, to amplify the fear, I would have done it just a little bit differently. And, I'm no professional. I'm not the one who came up with this idea, which is a brilliant idea. So like, fuck me, right? But that's just kind of how I would handle it. And I did want to talk a little bit more about the Blair Witch aspect of this, the found footage aspect, because there's something really important about this movie making it to where it's made it. Like, the Blair Witch Project comes to mind for sure, but like, I feel like this is the bottle pop for a whole subgenre that has almost exclusively lived online for like its entire existence, basically. And I think that's really fucking important. I think that what may happen, what's possible, depending on how much people really like this movie at the end of the day, how much its legacy lives up to it. But like, it could be this sort of like Paranormal Activity thing where it's sort of all these like YouTube creators that are making like pretty badass shit that's very vibey, not so much sensical storytelling, but like vibe centric, immersive experience, backroom style shit, like pulling that into theaters. It was only a matter of time before that stuff became successful enough to make it to a theater. And I'm glad that a movie like this can exist in a theater setup and can break the mold, break more rules that we didn't even know we were we're adhering to with all of the movies we've ever reviewed.
I definitely think we're going to get more stuff like this. I kind of doubt that like it's going to be as big of a moneymaker to where like big studios are going to be rolling through and like making them, but I could see Blumhouse cranking out a few. And like, I think it's really interesting that like now is the time that we're getting these like, I guess what you would call liminal horror movies or liminal inspired. I don't know if it's got a name.
I don't even know. That's liminal is not, it's like kind of a specific thing, but like, I would call this vibey experience horror.
Yeah.
Like,
or minimalist as well. There's definitely a sense of minimalism here. It kind of reminded me, and again, and maybe this is where I need to spend more of my time personally, because I don't really spend a lot of time online with, these horror shorts, these YouTube shorts. But one that we were talking about with the kind of the liminal space was the back rooms or whatever. And you just brought that up, but that kind of where like, what? There's nothing around. It's empty and stuff. And it really just makes you uncomfortable.
It's like uncanny valley of like physical space as opposed to of like human like a robot might be. Or like the Polar Express people might be uncanny. It's just uncanny in a different way.
That is this fucking movie, dude. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm trying to describe it.
Like, but I would just say I don't know if there's a lot of options. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. If I had to predict it, I mean, I just don't think there's a lot of options for a lot of those movies to be successful. Because one thing I will say is me on Saturday, I was like, Bob, we need to watch Heck, the short that this is based off of, because I feel like that's going to inform a lot of things. And while I think this film does a lot of things a lot better than Heck did, like I think the shots are much better, the way it was kind of filmed. But actually so solution that he had in Heck a lot better, instead of the whoop of where the kid talks more and he says things like he gives a little more context where he's like, Mom, I'm going to my friend's house or whatever, after he searches for her, and then tries to open the door. It's like, Mom, I can't open the door. And he's like talking to his mother that's non-existent. And even at one point he says like, I'm sorry, I got cancer. And, it kind of gives a little more emotional weight, where I feel like for a movie that goes on for an hour and 40 minutes, this one needed some of that. And And so I think it works better as a short.
That's kind of a central question that I've had, because I watched that before watching Skinamarink. I don't know about you guys.
After.
We watched it after.
So I watched it actually on New Year's Eve, like 30 minutes before the balls dropped. Like I was just on my own because people went to bed early. I was just on my own. I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch this thing. And it really hit me I just think it's maybe punchier, but I don't know that it's better. I have a hard time like apples to apples on those two things, because on the one hand, it's like, I didn't feel like anything was missing from the short, and I don't know exactly what was added in the movie except just more prolonged feelings of discomfort, which is kind of the whole thing. So it's both more and less successful at the same time. But I will tell you this, like the one thing from that, the cancer line, and that got me hard because like I had at that point deduced based on the title of the thing what was happening, and it's like grim dark as fuck on its own. And then he says, he's like trying to like basically going through the stages of grief over and over again. And he's bargaining. He's like, I'm sorry, I got cancer. Please come home. Please come back and be with me.
Yeah. He says, I'm better now. Like bargaining, like the bargaining.
And he's like
thing,
all on his own, which is a huge difference between this movie
without the sister. Yeah.
So he's just by himself. And I'm like, this is so hard to like. I know it's not intended to be mean, but it feels mean. Like I don't like, it's not news to anybody that I spent a lot of time around cancer kids because I was sick as a kid. So like I had a hard time with that line, man. Both for ill and for better and for worse. It's like it's more impactful and it's true, but it's also like just feels mean spirited in some way. So I was happy that they kind of went a slightly different direction in this movie.
I thought it gave it more impact, like you said, punchier. I thought it made it
hit me a little close to home, I think.
Well, it made it seem like it meant something, whereas this film felt more like an experiment or an exercise.
At the beginning, at the very beginning of the movie, you can kind of read into the kid falling down the stairs and like. Maybe he didn't fall. Maybe the dad threw him down the stairs. Maybe the dad's the reason the mom isn't there. And then like the absolute abandonment of the children throughout the rest of the movie. I think there's like...
At one point the kid says, I don't want to talk about mom.
True. Yeah. I think there's like different ways to interpret them, like endless ways to interpret this movie, honestly. Like there's no real wrong way, but I think you can definitely read into like potential like child abuse or child abandonment. I also think...
I didn't even pick that up at all.
I didn't really clock that either, but
I just thought it was like one of those injuries that like you hit your head, you don't know it, and then an hour later you're dead.
Or
like that's
that's what
the second.
That's what I was feeling,
Yeah, very well could be like the dad throws him down the stairs, and then the rest of the movie is like what's happening in the kid's head, for all we know. I think it's also like really interesting that this movie, like I assume the short came out during COVID, and like this came out obviously after, but like I don't know, like all the like exits vanishing and these kids like literally being stuck in they cannot leave if they want to, and like just like staring at the same walls and the same floors and the same toys for 570 however many days. Like I don't know, that just sort of, I think you could read into that several different ways as well. And I think like the wave of liminal like horror shorts, and I assume what we're gonna get is a lot of like full-length movies, is like just sort of a very, I don't know, it makes sense that would sort of like come to rise mid-COVID when we're all very much like we were fucking stuck in our own little liminal spaces, like and like just waiting,
never getting anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Waiting on the news story to break and hopefully bring some good news. Waiting on what the fuck's going on with your jobs and shit.
That's interesting.
Just staring at the same shit day in and day out, not being able to leave your house. Like it just kind of makes perfect sense that would be a bit of like a wave to come if it hasn't already come. Because I'm definitely like out of the loop on YouTube horror shorts for sure. But I think that's really fucking interesting though.
That is like, look at Bob getting some insights here.
I have a brain sometimes.
Look at
when we let him speak.
I know, right?
Rob, please, we're talking. I think that's
all right. Now the good hosts are gonna pick up slack here. Okay.
Yeah. So speaking of the internet thing, like again, like I think And Justin, to your point earlier, I think that you're right that there's something about this where it is very similar to found footage to me, and that it is this very, very low budget and accessible to young filmmakers sort of approach, the same way horror has kind of always been, but they keep utilities on how to make film become more and more available to people. So like, I feel like this is like just another iteration of that. And what I'm afraid might happen is that, to Justin's point earlier, there is kind of a cap on how you can reinvent this sort of thing over and over again, the way we saw with found footage, where all of a sudden there was a glut of all of these movies that were made to hopefully recapture that Blair Witch audience, recapture that paranormal activity audience, including sequels that, ultimately weren't that great and were kind of predictable, and then eventually became like a joke in and of itself. And there was like, I'm afraid we're going to reach a point. There's a possibility we might reach a point where there's like Scary Movie Skinamarink edition. And that is what I hope we avoid, honestly.
I'll watch that.
If the odd creator is able to make a feature-length film that's well justified and does this sort of thing without it becoming this like giant movement necessarily, maybe it's better as a subgenre, is I guess what I'm certain.
Yeah, well, it is. But even when you have the kind of surprise factor, and this did kind of go through the ringer where it got leaked and stuff, and that kind of sucks, but it's still building off that kind of idea of hype and coming, from its sources of internet hype and people talking about it and stuff like that. But even at that, we sat here at the beginning of the movie and we're like, could we recommend this to people? I think there's a space, like a cap on the medium of it. Works really well in shorter segments where, I watched a couple of those back rooms, but after like 2 or 3, that are only maybe 10 minutes a piece, I was like, I'm done with this. This kind of scare, the novelty was already gone. And so to have feature-length films, especially this one, which I'm going to go ahead and say, did not need to be 1 hour and 40 minutes. If anything, he could have easily cut 20 minutes off of this thing to make it kind of fit that style better. And then maybe you could see the ideas of, wow, you're seeing these like really short, punchy, experimental type of films come out, really guerrilla style, really tiny budgets. But he didn't do that. And maybe somebody else could do that. I just don't think it warrants the full length runtime of, any other film,
It could, though. This movie, I agree with you. It doesn't particularly, but I could see a movie like taking this and using it as like a jumping off point and evolving it to the next level and improving upon it. Like I could, there's a version of this movie that is the scariest shit I've ever seen, for sure.
Sure.
And the thing is, like, that's what people said about Blair Witch. People still, especially now that it's been like a well-trodden territory sort of thing, even young horror fans will come in and be like, that's a boring movie. It's people arguing about a map and yelling at each other for 2 hours, and that they're not wrong, but it was about the experience and the novelty of it at the time. And then eventually we iterated on it. Paranormal Activity really hooked into people. And I think this is the Blair Witch, and eventually we're going to get the Paranormal Activity, and then things are going to blow out from there to a fault, where because it's such an accessible thing, so there's already a thriving community on YouTube of people coming up and doing this sort of thing already. There's going to be a Backrooms movie. There's going to be.
Well, that's a good idea.
I kind of agree with you, though. Okay, I kind of agree with you that, like, I don't know that this is the form that makes the most sense there. I think it's possible, but I think we're going to see far more hits than misses on this subgenre, which is why I'd rather it be form fit to what the story demands rather than what makes a feature-length movie.
I could see an A24 joint rolling out that's in this style, but like refined a bit, for sure. Made for like $2 million or something.
But see, I'm curious about that too, because we've already started to see, I love the past 10 years, the decade where I thought like the horror is amazing. People are taking it seriously, the rise of A24. But more and more and more, you see these kind of critiques of, we see it in our own Slack.
Another A24 movie.
Yeah, A24, this style, this artsy style where things are taken seriously. And so with this film, it comes out and it's curious because it has a foundation of where we talk about these kind of creepypasta and like stuff that comes out on the internet, and these YouTube shorts and Gorilla made. It's interesting to think about a movie that's made on $15,000, but it could be curious of like, oh, that's where, maybe the next 5 to 8 to 10 years of horror kind of has these blips, or like people try to capture that, or like it becomes its own kind of like subgenre. And people hate that shift because we've been getting these high budget films that treat it as horror and treat it, get these big, fantastic actors, fucking Willem Dafoe going in there and doing these big monologues and stuff like that. And then you have this film where it's like, you don't even see anybody's face. These are a bunch of nobodies. This is a house. It's nowhere, versus the Edgars of I'm going to build a fucking lighthouse with nails that they actually used at the time. But it makes sense from the idea of a generational jump where the next generation kind of
it's a reaction to that.
Yeah, exactly. Pulls the opposite direction hard from what the previous generation found so fascinating and kind of ran into the ground a little bit.
We're also talking apples and oranges here. We're talking about people making movies in their house with no money, as opposed to like people getting $5 to $10 million. Like you can't really compare those. If somebody gave this dude $5 million, I think he's going to do something different. Like, with the same budget, he's not going to make the same movie. Like, it's going to be different.
Well, and that's the budget wasn't really what I was talking about. I was talking about the idea of what we want to see, what audiences grow tired of, and say like, and this next generation gets like completely bored with what impressed the previous generation. So they pull hard the opposite direction, where you're right, where you're not giving directors these huge budgets because they're like, makes me something super creepy with this guerrilla style budget. That becomes the trend of like, this is what we want. So I wasn't talking about necessarily like,
there's definitely going to be an appetite for that kind of thing, but I don't know that it's going to be the next like huge wave. I think
it might not be. I was just like talking about the possibility as a
it might not be accessible enough, even at its best, which is kind of true of found footage. But found footage found a foothold because of two things: because it was unique for a while, and because it was cost effective. Mm-hmm. So those are two things that are true about this movie right now.
And then you got fucking Cloverfield out of that too. I mean, there's like so many more different things that it'll splinter out and evolve and evolve.
VHS, we're still getting the VHSs. You know,
like there's a lot of great found footage, and they're more sparing now because they hit the crest of their popularity, and then nobody would touch it for like 5 years, and then except for the people, the real diehards that had cool ideas for it, and that's where these sort of like little subgenres do the best is when they are passion thrusted, like any art, really. Which is why I don't know for sure that it'll take off in the same way that found footage will, but I do think that this proves that there is an appetite for it, and hopefully it's enough to where we still get these movies, but not so much that they destroy the reputation or the viability of these movies for a long time.
It's exciting, generally speaking. Like this is very new to me, even though I guess there's a lot of stuff similar to it on the internet. And like this feels fresh, even if I didn't like love this movie specifically. I think it's really it's an extremely interesting movie. It's a unique experience to me, anyways. And I think it's really interesting to like think about and talk about. And like, do I want to watch this again? Like, not really, but I'm really glad that I did watch it. You know. It
was even hard to go back and watch Heck. We were like, I was like, well, I feel like we really need to do it
to get through it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, man, that shit. Like, I don't know. Like, I was pretty affected by the high watermark moments of this. I just want to get back into the actual film a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
The high watermark of like scares in this were really effective for me. What made it tough was the very droning lulls between that served their purpose. Absolutely,
they did.
But I think
in some ways,
I feel like, to your point earlier, that like if you trimmed off, I think you could maybe make this an hour-long special. If they had cut this down to
absolutely could.
If they had cut this down to an hour. Put it on in the 4:00 spot on Adult Swim, that would make perfect fucking sense.
It would. That's like, a good call.
But that would not pop the cork the way that this did.
This movie like would do a really good job at building tension for me, and like having me like really anticipate what's about to happen next, and then it like the space in between things that would actually happen would be like 5 to 10 minutes too long, and it would completely deflate that tension, and I would find myself bored, like, oh my god, nothing's ever going to happen, and then something would happen again.
I agree.
And I'd be scared, and the tension would return. But then I'd be bored again in another 5 minutes, and it just like it could not maintain the tension for me, but it would have like peaks and valleys for sure.
Well, it's because literally nothing would happen. And I understand of making that uncomfortable time, but where this movie is going to live in my mind, where I'll remember the things, is the most effective scene for me, of course. Well, maybe not of course, but is once the phone kind of comes back on and he's able to talk with somebody and it feels like a normal world, and he's like, I feel sick. And at that point, he had already like stabbed his eye, which is a big like whoa, peak or whatever in the realms of horror, but of this film. But to me, the most effective thing was I was fine not seeing his little feet and stuff like that. But the call of I'm stuck in my house, I'm alone. There's somebody who I can actually reach, then that brings this like kind of anxiety and tension back. But when you're just staring at the same shot that you've used at least like 8 times before of the fucking ceiling, and you don't even try to like add any kind of shadow on it or like no change in development whatsoever, it's just that same fucking static shot. I'm like, this 100% is not necessary.
I think there's an argument to be made for that too. Like, I'm not entirely against what you're saying by any means. I think that I think that's what makes the movie difficult, not anything else. I think it's those shots. But at the same time, to me, like that false sense of security or that false, like that feeling of boredom, that's your peaks and valleys. This movie kind of doesn't let up on the tension in the film. It just sort of like lulls you along. It's very vibey, to borrow a phrase from your generation, Juice. It's very vibey, but also like I was reminded, you talked about Eraserhead. What I immediately thought of after watching Heck was this shot in fucking Twin Peaks of just staring up at the swirling fucking ceiling fan. I think it was the pilot, where they spend like a good, like for a TV show, it was like a good 30 seconds to a minute or something, just staring at this fucking ceiling fan and just an ominous deep tone playing. And that's what this whole movie is. And I can get down with that. I think that like after a while it starts to lose its punch and then they bring you back. That's kind of the roller coaster moment. So I don't think that it's necessarily a flaw, but it would be easy to see it as a flaw. Do you see what I mean?
I do. But also too, I want to talk about as a horror movie where it's maybe like not so different, but it's kind of maybe a subgenre it fits in that's not this new kind of internet thing, is I have mentioned before, I'm really kind of find movies that portray hell in a very interesting way, kind of fascinating, because that's kind of a hard thing to get. So was it last year I watched like a movie called Baskin. I really like that movie where they're under Paris, As Above, So Below. Those kind of ideas of what could hell be like. Now, one thing that Heck did that I didn't care for was like the very last line was like, kind of gave that away, that was his intention. But I like this movie as the idea. So my idea was like, oh, the kid died, or he got a concussion. And he's in this form of hell or purgatory. Now the sister being there kind of fucks with that a little bit, which is why I kind of found Heck more effective, especially with the cancer line. And so I'm like, somewhere there's like this fusion of the things I really like about Heck and the things I really like about Skinamarink, and it's trimmed down at least 20 to 25 minutes. And like I think Bob said, somewhere there's like maybe right there's a version of this that's like fascinating and effective and like doesn't bore me and is very scary. And I kind of wish I had that. I see it, but I'm also kind of happy with the bones of this for the most part as well. I
think that's interesting though, that it's so flexible that it kind of kind of works in a bunch of different forms.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, you can read
I think.
You can read this movie a million different ways. Like when I was watching this, I was like, I don't know, maybe he's in hell, maybe not. It doesn't really feel like that to me. Heck definitely blatantly tells you that's what's happening. But in this movie, like I could see this as like he falls down the stairs, gets thrown down the stairs, whatever. The rest of what's happening is sort of in Kyle's head at the hospital. And like, for all we know, he could be in a coma and this is what he's experiencing in his coma. And there is some sort of like dream demon trying to take his soul to hell. And that's what we see at the end when he says, go to sleep. And he finally does. And then the demon like turns its sights on the viewers, which is fucking brilliant, I think. And creepy as fuck. And then he asks like, oh, what's your name? Like he's moving on to his next victim. That's fucking
Wait a minute.
cool.
Let me ask you. Okay, so I think that it's Kevin asking.
The kid gives the last
and it's just
line.
Not answering.
Yeah, the kid at the very end gives the last line of "What's your name?"
That's fascinating though, too, in its own right.
No, that's how I took it. So the face you're seeing, you don't think says anything.
No,
I think it says go to sleep.
It does say go to sleep. It doesn't say what's your name.
Because that's what it's saying is like, who is this? Well, who do you fucking think it is, viewer? Do you think it's maybe Satan?
Now I gotta watch that again and like, it's fucking hell. That's totally how I interpret it though. Was like,
okay,
the thing. Because if Rekka, I don't know, I gotta watch it again, but like I don't think its mouth ever really moves at all in the audio.
Could you even really make out?
Well, it's hard to tell because it's pretty much like blurred the fuck out.
It's blurry as fuck, yeah. But I don't think
blurred
its
and
mouth,
grainy.
I was trying to watch his mouth hard, but I don't think it ever moves. So I don't. But that's why I just thought like all of that was like coming out of this being, but it just didn't move. But now I want to rewatch the ending.
No, because eventually, like it was like Kevin. So, and that was the thing is because they specifically do give you some things, and one of the things is like the time, and one thing I was kind of like joking around. I think Heck really pushed it maybe a little too far because they started getting into some wild numbers where I think Skinamarink kind of honed it back in where it's like it's
they did a number
time.
Of numbers. Like,
they
kept their running tally. It's like day 2, day 3, and I kind of like that better. I wish that this had done this. I wish it had done like day 3, then day 10, and then a long pause, and then day 500.
The
or whatever.
countdown wore my ass out on Heck. I'll be honest.
Oh, really?
I thought they went like too far with it, where it's like day 9 billion. I mean, not that high, but they went like too high. Where I like it a little reserved, where it like starts off like you said, but even 500 is almost 2 years. Who sits in a room, So even that's mind numbing. Like, how could you sit here, especially as a kid and shit? But so, I mean, it gives you some information of like, you're in this place. At this point, there's no way you would have food. So you're being kept alive. So, I mean, that's why the hell thing made the most sense. The coma thing is interesting. That is an interesting thing that I didn't consider at all.
He's stuck in his
head. Because he's a kid, and so his like 4, and so his version of the world is very, very limited.
Just his house.
So exactly. So if it was just his imagination or his mind creating the space for him to occupy, then that would make a lot of sense. Actually,
that's honestly like this is like the same. This is why this feels like a David Lynch thing, right? Because it's so oblique. And it's like, ultimately, we can rationalize it 100 ways to Sunday, but the rationalization isn't what sells this movie.
For sure.
What sells it is the immersive dread, absolute core dread that it tries to instill. And I think succeeds at instilling for the most part with some built-in, intentional or not, lulls where I'm just like, I know a few people in the audience are just sort of like, time to shift in my seat a little bit. Okay, let's keep it going. But that's kind of part of it. Like that's such a Lynch thing to like in the season 3, there's a 2-minute scene of somebody sweeping a floor and that's it. Like there's shit like that all over this movie where it does not follow the rules, and that is uncanny in and of itself. So there's a number of levels of uncanny approach here, some of which makes for good filmmaking or good viewing, and some of which makes for difficult viewing. So I kind of resent it. I don't resent it. I kind of love and hate it at the same time, though.
I resemble
it. It doesn't make it easy.
Well, the thing is hard because when it works really well for me. And when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work because I feel like I can see the seams. There was one scene, like talking about using your budget and your space to create an atmosphere, the face at the end. That's a fantastic way to do it. That was very effective. A scene that was not effective at all was the dude clearly just throwing blood from behind the wall, right behind the wall. And it just looks like him tossing it. It looks stupid to me. I was like,
dude,
that's
I understand that. And I didn't hate it there, but I totally know what you're talking about. And I'll give you an example. In like, you say you've only watched a couple of Backrooms things. I like to watch a bunch of them. Like I'll watch like a 10-minute one every, like once a week or something. Because there's endless amounts of them. They're procedurally generated games at this point that you film, you throw on some CTR grain and you call it a short film. That's it. So like there's a million of them, but they've gotten so like it's like one step removed from Five Nights at Freddy's at this point.
Yeah.
And that made me think like, but this movie and the entirety of that whole subgenre is kind of built on the Five Nights at Freddy's generation to some extent.
When they were kids, that's what scared them, and now they're adults that are able to make films. Yeah.
Or they like experienced that as a teenager and watched it scare kids. Now, like whatever it is, like, that's sort of a direction of horror that has kind of like the fact that this is about kids, but at the same time, it's talking through a lens that kids are like engrossed with on their own. There's something to that, man. Yeah. I don't know if it's like playing. I don't know if it's as. I don't know. I can't psychoanalyze it enough to really come to a conclusion, but it's interesting.
This is the best discussion of this film you're ever gonna get, I bet.
And you thought we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we show up.
We gotta land the shit out of this plane, though. Let's go ahead and rate Skinamarink out of 5. Randy, how do you feel?
I feel more positive. I love doing this show because it really helps me solidify what I think to some extent, helps me like kind of parse out my feelings. I came into this and I told Justin, I told you this, I was like, I just don't know 100% how I feel about it. And just like by laying out the facts and like my experience with it and hearing what you guys had to say about it, I think that I'm definitely pretty positive on this film. I'm pretty psyched on the possibilities that lay before other films in this nature and this director, and seeing that subgenre sort of like start to get some sunlight in the wider audience is just, that's kind of a thrill in and of itself. So on that merit, and also like the merit of being a pretty effective, spooky fucking tale with some flaws, and like a pretty goddamn immersive film with some flaws, I'm going to give this, I think, a 4. Maybe I'll a 4 for me, and I mean it's kind of playing to my strengths too, or my favorite stuff. Like I like this sort of thing to begin with. I'm a found footage. I'm a found footage guy. I'm a David Lynch guy. I'm a fucking VHS baby. Like the cartoons they watch on this, the Fleischer cartoons, I watched those things growing up. So this is kind of made just for me in my mind.
Tight. 4 from Randy. All right. I'll slide in here real quick.
Bob, get in there. Out of 5. Skinamarink, dinky deuce. What are you giving it?
I think this movie is just like an extremely interesting sort of experiment that I think has probably been percolating for quite some time, and I was just relatively unaware of it. This sort of brand of internet horror it feels fresh as hell to me, and I think it's like really exciting, even if this movie did not control my like full-blown attention the entire time. And I think that the tension that was happening like ebbed and flowed, but like it had a handful of scares that made me like literally holler, like scared, like got me fucking good. And it's hard to do that even once for most horror movies. Vast majority of the time, I'm not even remotely scared. But that face at the end of this movie like fucking wrecked me. I was like really having to make myself look and not look away from the screen.
Same.
It was like it was similar to the Pazuzu face from The Exorcist is what it made me think of.
Yeah,
but
except
like,
it's not a flash.
Right, it's like 3 fucking minutes of just that staring at you. Like I was like, God damn,
The
fuck! Like roll the credits, please.
That
and like the whole looking under the bed sequence and like the mom appearing, like that fucking wrecked me good, dude.
The mouth.
I screamed like a child. The mouth was
the mouth thing was a true jump scare.
Yeah.
Really, that got me. Like it was me like.
It didn't get me either.
It made me think of like Ouija. I was like,
good.
that's that Ouija bullshit. I don't really.
Me too.
But like it's the aesthetic that really sold it home. Like it didn't work in Ouija because you could see shitty CGI.
Shitty it is.
Like,
well, to me,
it's not.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're getting back into it.
Randy, come on, Randy.
Just the audio of Kyle stabbing himself in the eye and screaming fucking wrecked me too. The blood on the ceiling worked pretty well, I thought, and like the repetitive audio of the old school cartoons was fucking creepy. The 911 call was pretty effective. So like you had these moments, they were just like too few and far between. I think if you did cut like 15 minutes out of this, it probably would have been way more effective for me personally. Anyway, I know this was effective throughout for a lot of people, but just for me. The dreamlike stuff that like got real wonky towards the end felt like a little too out there. Like I know you got to have some sort of like crescendo. Something has to evolve and change, but I was like, I don't know what the fuck's happening exactly at the end. It was like a little much with a giant pile of like the pyramid of upside down toys or whatever the fuck it was. It's kind of weird. I think this definitely like nails that feeling of being like a small child, like waking up in the middle of the night and like having to go take a leak and like thinking you might have like seen something in the dark or like heard something over in the next room and you're not really sure, but you're overthinking it and like really freaking yourself the fuck out. Like this captures that vibe so well. And I just love that as an idea. I love how this movie looks. The aesthetics of it really, really worked for me. The audio really worked for me, even though there were a couple like stingy jump scares that are a little cheap. Like they did in this movie specifically, it didn't bother me that much for whatever reason. It really like it stretches what a movie is and should be and can be, and I think that's like necessary and also like makes this movie interesting. But there's really not much in the way of a story or like characters, and there's no dialogue really. Like there's like no acting in this movie, so it's like it could definitely lose a lot of people's attention. I am sure, and I think it probably has, but like some of that did detract for me as well. I think there's definitely a happy medium that you could hit between all of these elements and like make a scary fucking really cool fresh feeling movie. Overall though, I think I'm going to land at a 3 out of 5 for Skinamarink. Yeah, I do want to see some more shit like this though, like the next evolution or whatever. Like, and I'm sure we will. So I'm kind of stoked for that.
This style is going to be so easy to dunk on though. So
it is. It totally. Haters gonna hate though. You know, whatever it is. You know.
Yeah.
Juice.
We're ska fans. We know.
Yeah, for sure. I still love ska. Juice. Out of 5, how do you feel?
I feel a lot like Randy, where actually I generally have a pretty good idea of like generally where I'm going to be. And every now and then, you know, our discussion really kind of breaks it out and I go a full star away from, but you know, I generally have a good idea, but coming into this, I still didn't really know exactly how I felt. Did kind of generally feel more positive. So with this, I do feel positive towards this film. I'm glad it exists. I'm really like intrigued about more options like this. But as a film, I really do feel kind of split. I think there were a lot of effective moments. The mouth one wasn't particularly for me. But the phone scene, the stabbing your eye, I thought it was smart to kind of build toward that where just the chair ends up on the ceiling and then a couple more things end up on the wall. And then even the POV shot on the ceiling, I was okay with that too. I was like, okay, you're using your space in an interesting way. Where I didn't care for it was where I could kind of see the seams of the like tossing blood from just behind a wall. That looked stupid to me. I wasn't crazy about all the Legos. It was okay. But when it kind of started to stretch out and get further away, I was like, I hated the toilets disappearing and the whoop. I hated that so much. And I really didn't like that jump scare where, I thought this was really stupid. Where the little phone's eyes like look up.
I thought that was stupid, but it worked for me.
It did not work for me because what I wanted to do was take this movie.
That's Five Nights at Freddy's shit.
Well, I want to take this movie very, very seriously because the dark moments are heavy and carry a lot of disturbing weight. And when things like that happen, where you can see the seams or like I can't take it seriously, it deflates a lot of that feeling I have for it. And since it makes me sit with this movie in a lot of like lull time, I have a lot of time to think about that. Not to say that some of those like really long shots aren't effective in their own way, but I think it was overdone. I actually like the idea of the static shots and the liminal space and not showing any people's faces. That's great. Looking under the bed, the noise and stuff like that. But I think it was just way too repetitive. And I wish they would have added some more of those elements of Heck where we get a little bit more grounded and a little bit more emotional weight towards it and stuff like that. Overall, I'm going to land with Bob. I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5 from Soju is going to put our aggregate at a 3.3, repeating of course.
Of course.
Which is half of 666.
Oh, shit. Hey, Randy, isn't your favorite song Liminal Spaces? You're a liminal boy.
Oof.
You're all about.
Oh,
you're all about it.
wow, yeah. Wow, yeah.
Let me stick to the catchphrases, okay?
Oh, let me stick to the catchphrases.
Leave it to the experts over here, all right? Predator Bob.
Oh my God. 3.3 from you boys over here at Straight Chilling. Let's jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Skinamarink.
Certified fresh.
I couldn't respond to your razzing because of audio issues, but fuck you. And we're moving on. Rotten Tomatoes segment goes as follows. I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive scores are from both critics and users on RottenTomatoes.com. So for Skinamarink, we have 58 critic reviews. Not a whole ton, but a little bit. I'm going to start with Juice today. Where do you think, what percentage do you think are positive out of those 58?
Damn, dude. I don't know. This is going to be a wild one. For the critics, I think they'll be more generally positive. I think they'll appreciate the craft a lot. So I'm going to go, I'll take the 69 dudes.
69 dudes. All right. Bob, how about you?
This is a tough one, man. It definitely is. I don't think either is going to be like crazy high. 69 is a solid guess. I think I'm gonna fuck.
I think I'm just gonna go fuck.
Y'all wrap this up.
We're fine.
I think I'm gonna take the under, and I'm gonna go 65.
65. All right. Well, Bob, you're a bottom, but you're not a power bottom. Juice is going to take this.
Oh,
76. So a nice solid
power
solid
bottom
middle
Juice.
C.
Oh, soggy bottom Juice.
Sure. So
That
no soggy bottoms here, Bob.
That's leaking.
soggy bottom. The critics' consensus reads as follows: Skinamarink can be more confounding than frightening, but for viewers able and or willing to dial into its unique wavelength, this unsettling film will be difficult to shake. I think that's pretty apt, personally.
I think the craziest thing about this movie is I just got a hell yeet.
Soggy.
The colors, Duke! The colors!
All right. Moving on to the audience score. There's over 50, so kind of the same number, really. It doesn't say 58 specifically, but it says 50 plus verified ratings from audience members. So we have a similar pool here.
Okay.
Starting with Bob this time. Bob, where do you think the audience is going to land on this bad boy?
This has got to be lower than the critics. It seems like the general vibe of the room has been like split down the middle pretty good. I'll go just above 50-50. I'll take a 55, I think.
55. All right. Juice, how about you?
I agree. I think it's going to be much lower, but the thing is, it depends on who's seen this and reviewed it, because 50 is not much. And to go to the theater to see this kind of film takes a certain kind of viewer. But even in our Slack, it seems like it's been really split. And even like the horror hounds are like, some of them are like, that kind of sucked. So I think I'm going to go like 48.
48. Okay. Bob, you fucked up again. It's a fucking sweep for Juice.
Whoa, the hell you sweep?
The actual score being 49%. So right dead center on the button, just about.
Juice. Someone's cheating over here, that's for sure.
Woo. Someone's just
right.
hot. Someone's just
Something
hot.
right.
Someone's got a leaky
I'm going to read.
What? Damn.
Well, God damn.
Skinamarink deuce.
Moving right along, we're going to read some negative reviews because this one, they're going to be pretty funny. In fact, there's one that was already provided, not from Rotten Tomatoes, but through somebody on Reddit as posted on our Slack channel via Logan.
There you go.
From Faculty of Horror. She posted, somebody wrote, what really took me out of this movie was the anachronistic Lego parts you. I mean, second shot, and you're looking at Lego set 60249, which came out in 2020. And this movie's supposed to be set in 95. We also see numerous parts that weren't around in the 90s, like the rectangular support girder 6448, modified 1x2 plate with bar handle 60479, 16.4 wedge 45301, and of course, the new orange brick separator. Totally ruined the immersion. So somebody did not appreciate the Legos.
Dude, that's pretty great. Yeah.
I love that. That person knows who they are. That person's a self-fulfilled motherfucker.
Yeah. Fully realized.
Yeah. Woo. Recognizing those Legos.
By number and name. That is a catalogic knowledge. That's not a word.
Those have to be made up, right? Like, I'm assuming they can't be accurate.
I assume that was a joke. Yeah.
Oh, I believe it, buddy. I know Lego people.
I want to believe.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Here's a 5-star review on Rotten Tomatoes. Crowdfunded movie that looked like a cinema student movie project that would have gotten an F. You never see any characters' faces, so you have no empathy for anyone. Slow, 90 minutes too long. Dude. When I was leaving the theater, I thought, WTF did I just watch? By the way, literally nothing happens in the first 10 minutes. When this hits streaming and cable, save your time and money. Somebody was not there for it.
If you listen to that child call 911 and have no empathy for him, you're the problem.
Yeah, damn.
God damn.
You're the well, I mean,
you're the problem with society.
You are tone it down there, Bob.
The singular
like problem. Anybody out there is just going to be pleased that a child is hurting. And
this is a hilarious 1-star review. This movie lacked creativity and imagination. Truly disappointed. They could have done so much with it. What? Lacked creativity? I don't know about that.
That's not. They could have done more with it. I agree with that. This whole movie is imaginative, not creativity.
Like the format itself is imaginative and creative. So
yeah,
I don't fucking get it. Here's one last 5-star review. All caps. It's horrible. save your money and don't see it. Makes no sense at all. Half star.
I mean,
Love it.
makes
I love
sense.
this is. It makes sense. The thing is, like, this is exactly the reactions I anticipated on. Like I said, this is an easy movie to dunk on because it's not like you're gonna be like nitpicking story beats or whatever. If you want to just, it's like Paranormal Activity or it's like Blair Witch. People saying Blair Witch is boring. How do you argue with that? It's like either you're immersed in it or you're not.
Yeah, sure.
If you refuse to meet the movie where it's at, then you're gonna.
Well, to be fair, I mean, we reviewed Blair Witch on this cast, and going back, a lot of like the credit we did was like we were there when it happened, and we know what a cultural impact it had, and things like that. But we also were like, yeah, I mean, as a movie. Some of it works still. Some of it kind of doesn't now that we've watched a shit ton of horror movies. So, I mean,
yes, but
fair,
I still think that movie's very effective, even in it. Like, I think the boring moments, like the quote unquote boring moments, are things that build. It's all building blocks towards something.
Yeah.
And so I don't resent that because like you don't get mad at scaffolding for existing in a building, even though it's boring.
The thing about this movie, even though like, I'm positive on it and something like that, if somebody came in and just said like that was a terrible movie and it was really like lacking, I'm not going to like completely disagree in that regard. I don't feel like as compelled to be like, no, as if it were like The Menu or The Lighthouse or something like that. If somebody's like, man, that movie is really boring and ineffective, I'm like, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, no, exactly. You kind of like this is the zone I live in as a David Lynch fan. You have to understand
as a liminal boy.
Welcome to
this is my
house,
bread and butter.
bitch.
Like, yeah, fucking don't take off your shoes and pray you don't stick around for 500 days.
Welcome to art, bitch.
Welcome to Liminal Randy. Stare at this corner.
In this house.
We got some other shit.
Dude, that trailer though was baller. I gotta
good.
give that some credit. Yeah.
The movie could have blown ass, and that trailer still would have been legendary.
Yeah.
That is our Rotten Tomatoes segment.
It is.
I got a little more trivia. Let's go ahead and jump over into that real quick.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, there, boys. I mentioned earlier, your boy Ball had a YouTube channel. I think, well, he might still have it, but it's called Bite-Sized Nightmares, and he would ask his viewers to post comments about their own nightmares, and then he would shoot recreations of the nightmares.
That's great.
Skinamarink was inspired by the reoccurring tropes in the most commonly submitted nightmares. He said, people kept commenting on my videos with the exact same dream that they had. I'm between the ages of 6 and 10. I'm at my house. My parents are either dead or missing, and there is a monster. So that was the birth of the idea there.
You know what this just reminded
story.
me of? I've mentioned this on the cast before, but this reminded me of, wow, this is weird. When I was
Johnny?
No, when I was a kid, that song, The Way, where would it go?
Oh, the fastball song.
Yeah, the fastball song used to freak me out in the same kind of way because the parents just like take off, and I used to be like, what?
Do you know what that song's about?
I don't think so.
That song is about a couple. They read this story, the fastball people. They read the story in the news about some missing grandparents. Somebody's grandparents had just gone missing. And as it turned out, what happened was they had dementia and wandered off and passed away in the woods. They didn't know that when they wrote the song, I don't think, if memory serves. But so, yeah, it's extremely grim dark, that song, which has like,
I really like me out as a kid.
I love that song. Yeah,
I love that song too.
But that's weird that a lot of people would kind of mention that idea because it used to freak me out too.
I think that's like that's kind of like that's why this movie is effective because it taps into primal fears.
It does,
like a shared experience that a lot of people have had, or at least dreamed about.
Yeah, everybody's like been a kid. Waking up in the middle of the night, trying not to piss their jaws and getting spooked. Like everybody has done that.
Well, everybody to this day will have a day they'll wake up and be like, "Wait, where am I?" And like that uncanny feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I wake up almost every single night in the middle of the night with a plain spooky white face staring at me, asking what my name is.
What's your name?
Juice.
I don't think that's what happened.
I got just a little more here. Some of the shit that Ball.
What a terrible idea to just shit in that shower.
Well, I'm not the one doing
it'll go down eventually.
It'll buff out.
It'll eventually get worn down.
It'll buff
if I take
out.
a long enough shower.
You just gotta let it soak. Like dishes.
The hopefully your little catcher there will get all the corn and the peanuts that your body can't break down.
Yeah, little catcher.
God.
And then you could just put them right back in, you know?
I gotta do now.
Put them right back in your mouth.
Waste not, want not, right?
Are we really entering the eating shit portion of the joking circle here? I'm sorry, but not
In this house.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Ball cited some work of other filmmakers that inspired him. He mentioned Chantal Ackerman, Stan Brockage, Maya Deren, Stanley Kubrick, and of course your boy David Lynch. And he also said that he was inspired by an avant-garde film from 1967 called Wavelength, which I'm unfamiliar with, and also 1974's slasher Black Christmas, which I don't know. I don't know that I get much.
I could see that.
It's
I could see it.
POV, right?
I mean, sure.
It's the quiet, musicless, wandering of the halls. I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the horrific screeching phone calls. People saying heinous things that happens. That's pretty much all the show. I think I covered just about everything else. Actually, should we even bother with a cooter? Like, I think it feels like might be a waste of time, to be honest.
We can skip it.
All right,
let's skip it.
It's a rare occurrence, but we can skip it.
All right, no cooter of the week this week. Let's go ahead and chill out, folks, and talk about what we've been watching.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randoose, why don't you kick us off? What you been watching?
Hey, so I actually have not been watching a whole ton because I have been just grossly immersed in the game Hades. I'm told it's called a roguelike or something. I can't remember now. Fuck it. It's a fun game in which you play I know what I'm talking about. I've been playing this game like crazy. It's like this sort of like kind of like a beat 'em up, but you like get stats and you game things in a certain way and you go through the same several levels over and over again to try and like get further and further and further until you can like go all the way through and whatever. And it's like Olympic gods and all these different like mythological figures, but they kind of speak in somewhat modern parlance. I don't know. It's tough to describe, but it's a pretty fucking fun game and it's funny and it's kind of silly in its own way. And it's got some fucking, I don't know. I really like playing it and I've been just zooming through that for weeks now, a couple weeks. And it's kind of a game that just doesn't really have a natural endpoint unless you complete everything. And my brain, that's dangerous. I want to complete it so bad, but it is daunting to do that. Other than that, I had a friend on Jeopardy this week who lost to one of the biggest, I guess, one of the more impressive trivia personalities in the underground fight club that is trivia aficionados in America, which was a shame because he did really, really fucking well. Otherwise, he had a pretty good chance of winning for a while.
Damn.
But, it's an honor just to be nominated. I also did watch a new documentary on Netflix called Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker, which I had remembered this viral video from when it came out. It was around the time of the double rainbows and the auto-tuning and all that shit of this guy who was interviewed by the police or by a news organization after saving somebody with that. Like he's just like a guy who lived on the streets. He was happy living on the streets.
I remember that. Yeah.
Stopped an attack or whatever, and then like 3 weeks later he was under arrest for murder. So it's about sort of like that's all I ever knew about it, and they just kind of like connect the dots on that whole story, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of crazy. And then the last thing that I watched through the entirety of the Mike Myers vehicle, The Pentaverate, on Netflix, a 6-episode comedic show.
How was
Did you watch that, Bob?
No,
I think you might have brought it
kind of
up.
curious, but no, I hadn't watched it.
It's not that bad. You know, like, I think it's definitely Mike Myers' voice, but he's pretty off the chain a little bit. Like, he's making more off-color jokes than you would expect from him, and then they make jokes about him making off-color jokes. It's very, like, wink at the camera at times. It's not a perfect thing, but I do enjoy it. And I grew up with Mike Myers shit, so it's kind of touching on some nostalgia for me too, I think. He does an Eddie Murphy thing where he's like 12 characters in it. And I don't know that that's justified so much, but it's pretty good, I think. It's like, I don't know if you guys know the premise, but it's basically the Pentaveret is this organization of 5 men who are basically like an Illuminati, but they're quote unquote, they're nice. They're like the Illuminati, but they're nice. And they just kind of have this crazy underground organization.
Who says the Illuminati's not nice?
They're
movie.
naughty. So Illuminati juice.
Yeah. Right in the name. And that's really it.
Okay. All right.
Sweet.
Cool.
Juice, what you been
Juice, what you been watching? Well, I'm kind of on the same page as Randy, where I haven't been watching a whole lot. I've been gaming a lot more than I have in like probably the past couple years. I've been on that Hollow Knight, which is a similar kind of thing where it's like intense. And the more you get into it, the more you're like, there's 1 billion different hidden things than you could get. And you can play the game in a ton of different ways with different build styles. And there's secret bosses and secret little things. And you're like, holy God. But it's very addicting. I absolutely love the art style in that. Beautiful. It really reminds me of a lot of kind of the same way of like old school Donkey Kong, where you had those like still like amazing like backs as you move across like the screen and stuff. Some really great stuff, really beautiful to look at, and soundtrack is good and really fun. I really do like it. It's intense. It's not the easiest thing to play, but it makes you, it's rewarding. It makes you kind of like power up and feel stronger. You're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go do some harder shit now.
Dude, you would like Hades.
Yeah, I probably will. Yeah, somebody was posting about it the other day, and so yeah, I'll probably check that out eventually. I did Fight Club, which I hadn't seen in a long time, and it's going to be pretty interesting to talk about, honestly. So I actually haven't done that yet. It's happening tomorrow for me, but I've like got a lot of interesting thoughts about it because like the time it came out and it's kind of like Reputation and stuff, and being removed from it for a long time really kind of like was weird to kind of go back. And I don't know. You'll hear that about that soon enough. But that was an interesting watch, Fight Club. And I did start to watch Tar, but it's long, like really long, and so I have not finished it yet. But it's fantastic acting and stuff like that. I just haven't been able to finish it. I rewatched The Menu again, which is, oh man, yeah, it might be pushing for number 1. Like it's so good. I really like that movie. I really like it a lot.
And hear us spin the bullshit
but
on Light and Shadow about it.
Yeah, I did listen to that. I really enjoyed y'all's
Okay,
discussion, actually. I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't fishing for that, but I will
listened to the I listen to the content we put.
Unlike Randy,
aren't you sweet? That's just real cute.
I know. So other than that, that's all I've been watching and doing. That's right. And now,
Bob, what you been watching?
Show. So I got a good voicemail prompt.
Oh, I'm gonna fucking shit in your shower, buddy.
Okay.
You're gonna have to wait your turn.
Oh boy. I've been watching some bullshit.
Oh God, Juice has got an idea.
Oh, it's call him Juice for nothing.
I forgot.
That wasn't a bit.
I thought you were fucking with me. You just literally forgot. Jesus
you're
Christ.
supposed to be the young one, but you clearly got dementia yourself.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wow. Jesus. Yeah, I've been watching some shit. I'll talk about it, I guess. I checked out this movie called The Leech. that came out in December. It's put out by Arrow Video. Stars Jeremy Gardner. It's about this priest, and it takes place during Christmas time. And he comes across this guy who's passed out in his church, and he kind of hurries him along because he's closing the doors up for the night. And then he realizes that he doesn't have anywhere to go. He feels bad for him. It's the holidays. It's snowing. It's cold. So he invites him to crash at his place. And it turns out he's got a girlfriend that shows up, and he extends the invitation to her as well. And it just sort of like gets to a point where like their heads are butting over various things, and their motivations are concealed, and things happen. Things get very hairy. It's definitely like a low budget movie, very much like a character study for sure. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I kind of wish that I had watched it over Christmas because it's very much a Christmas horror movie. I think you can rent it. Obviously, I mean, most people probably aren't going to watch it now that Christmas is past. I'll try and bring it up again towards the end of the year, though, because I think it's definitely worth watching. Jeremy Gardner is like definitely kind of the star of the show. He plays this like country bumpkin, like hobo kind of guy. It's got some funny moments in it too, but it's pretty solid. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I also watched a movie called Sick. And I did record a minicast on this, so I won't get like too deep into it. It's a slasher movie. It's on Peacock. It just dropped last Friday on Peacock. And this is written by Kevin Williamson from Scream fame. And it definitely has that sort of like Scream vibe. It's definitely like trying to do the Scream thing. It's a slasher set during COVID, like pretty much right at the start of COVID, like April 2020 is the time period of the movie. And that's very much like embedded in the plot. Like these young 20-somethings are quarantining at a cabin, just trying to get away from everybody. And there's a slasher involved. But I'll be dropping a minicast on that relatively soon. Also, I watched a couple Friday the 13th movies because this past Friday was Friday the 13th. I watched part 7 and 8 because I hadn't seen those in a really long time. 7 holds up pretty good. I got through it, which is saying something because I couldn't fucking finish part 8. I had to turn it off. It was rough. That's rough going. Yeah.
8 is Manhattan, by the way, right?
Manhattan. Jason Takes Manhattan, yeah. Dude, ironically, like when he finally got to Manhattan, my patience was just gone. I was like, I don't even fucking care anymore. I just turned it off.
Damn.
Yeah, I forgot how that movie opens up, in Manhattan, and it's like setting the scene for Manhattan, and then the next hour is just on a boat. It's like such a cock tease. It's dirty. They do you dirty. 7's pretty fun though. Basically, Carrie versus Jason Voorhees.
Yeah,
good shit.
7's pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I've been watching. We don't have any voicemails this week. But if you guys are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Apparently, Justin has a fucking great prompt that he just cannot wait to tell you about. So.
Oh my God. Okay. So I was thinking the Skinamarink idea of like leaving your fear, to be made into a short horror film. If you were going to leave a comment, like a nightmare. He just said people would leave like, what's one of your biggest fears or nightmare that you have or something that he would make into a kind of a short film. So that was kind of my idea, Bob. I hope that's good enough for you.
It's great now that you let me talk about what I've been watching.
That is certainly great. Better than whatever Rob was talking about.
Yeah,
for sure. We've done something pretty similar before, and a lot of people called in with some great like nightmares and night terrors that they experienced. Well, not great, interesting, I guess. I'm sure they were miserable to experience.
Great,
fucking we love it.
Sound like a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. Call in, tell us about your fucked up dreams and shit. We want to hear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any? What's your fear? What are you scared of?
Well, I mean, we've definitely covered my dream situation. Talking about night terrors during the nightmare that review and other times. So feel like it's well trod for me. I have night terrors from time to time.
Be interesting
so it's
as somebody
scarier for people in the room with me than it is for me usually.
It'd be interesting if somebody could capture the feel of that in a type of short film, you know, like even if you imagine like setting a camera in a room where somebody's sleeping, but then in the next room over, you hear the sounds of a night terror happening, like night after night after night, shit like that.
Sounds terrible. I don't often remember my dreams, but I do I've noticed that whenever I get super cold while I'm sleeping, I have the worst, like most fucked up nightmares. Does that ever happen to you? Like when you get really cold at night?
No,
that's not what does it for me. What does it for me is lack of sleep. Like if I push myself to stay awake longer than I ought to, like really far past when I should go to sleep, then that's when the imagination starts really fucking with me at night.
Mm-hmm. I'll have these bouts where I'll have like really imaginative dreams, like very vivid, crazy shit happening. And then most of the time I don't dream that much. And I very rarely have bad dreams, nightmares that scare me. When I do, I'm usually falling like that. But yeah, I was thinking one cool idea would be like the idea of like kind of progressively losing senses, like erratically. If all of a sudden you just like couldn't see or like and then you couldn't hear, and like I don't know, just some idea of
my teeth fell out.
Things being taken from you just at like random will or whatever, and you can't make sense of it. That would be kind of cool.
I have
no mouth, yet I must scream.
I have one like really messed up nightmare that I remember that my insides were like on fire and there was nothing I could do to like put them out. It was
that after taking a shot of Malort?
Yes,
it was.
Every time. It's a recurring nightmare. That fire water. I tell you what.
Yeah.
That's a solid prompt. Hit us up at 904-638-3231. Let us know. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be tackling another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by Alice, and the movie is Willy's Wonderland.
Ooh. Okay.
Nicolas Cage joint. Slam that into your eyeballs. I'm not sure if that's streaming anywhere. I'm sure you can rent it VOD style, and it's also on Blu-ray.
A pirate's life is a wonderful life.
Slam Willy's Wonderland into your eyeballs. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can hit us up on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast, on Twitter at STR8_chilling. If you want to join in on our daily Slack channel conversations, hit us up on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can do so. We talk about the movie of the week, the minicasts, life in general. We trade recipes. We show our pictures of our cats and dogs and various animals, and it's
that sentence could have ended totally differently.
We send pictures of our
shit. Yeah, I did not realize that could have gone sideways. There are no dick pics. I guarantee you that. That is a guarantee. It's a Bob guarantee.
Well, Bob.
It's a guarantee. That's gonna do it for us this week here at Straight Chilling.
Well, Bob, I mean,
and it's a guarantee. Until next week. As always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
In this house.
Skinamarink, dinky dink, Skinamarink, doo. Ha ha!